donor retention is really hard. It's really, really hard. It's almost becomes, especially if they're individual donors, it's almost becomes similar to how people are so quick on their phones, like nowadays with Instagram and everything. People like, they lose their attention span is really short. And so people tend to kind of go from one cause or one issue to another, one organization to another, and they'll be like, oh, I'll support this one now and this one later. Millennial generation and this upcoming generation are more likely to be individual donors in a monthly program. So if you can create a monthly subscription program, you can get $10 every month for 12 months, versus if you ask for $100, people are less likely to donate. Sometimes we imagine a funder or someone, an investor, in this like dark room somewhere, and this different background, kind of scary oftentimes. But most often people in the social impact space are there because they care, and they most likely have a similar background, right? If they work for a foundation, most likely they are working there because they have a background in nonprofit. So they have, most likely worked in the same space, most likely have empathy for what you're doing. And so when you start finding one connection, then the conversation becomes really interesting, because the other person's like, oh, you know what? I actually know a little bit about this. Let me inquire more. And you go into the details. And sometimes that is such a beautiful way to recruit a potential funder. And sometimes that's a great way to recruit a potential advisor, or maybe even a board member. And so you never know what really comes out of it once you start having that conversation. Most of the times, you know who you're going to meet with. Check out their LinkedIn, check out their website, check out their annual report, and really understand, what are the common themes? Is it agriculture? Is it gender? Is it education? What are some things? Do they have experience working in your community? And really use that as a starter for the conversation. When someone says, I love what you're doing, but I can't support right now, the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'd love for Gayle to share as well, the first thing that comes to my mind is ask if you can add them to your newsletter. It's a very simple ask. It's a very small ask, but it is so powerful. Most likely they'll say, yeah, sure, I don't mind. And then make sure you add them, and make sure every month you send them something interesting about your work and the progress you're making, and just keep them engaged. And then maybe 2 months later, maybe 3 months later, maybe 2 years later, sometimes you can go back to them and say, hey, you've been following my work for 2 years. Thank you for all of the support you've provided. Would you consider making a donation to my organization?
One of the sort of follow-up questions that you could have, in addition to doing the tasks that Abhi suggested, is you could inquire from the donor or the funder or the investor what his or her funding cycle is. They may say, I just really can't make a decision because my board isn't going to meet for 3 months. So you could try to unpack a little bit about what there maybe is, and you may say, well, when would be a good time to get back to you? Are you going to be releasing funds in this fiscal year? Are you going to be releasing funds, 2 years from now? And they may share with you some very pragmatic realities of their board. Your funder may say, gosh, I like what you're doing, but I got to bring 5 other proposals to the board. And it may be that they're only just communicating to you that they need time. You may ask a question of, what can I do in the meantime to help you, in your proposal making? Can I stay in touch? Can I, sometimes if you just have an ask, which is saying, how can I move you from a maybe to a yes, people will give another answer. They may give you some other tasks to take. That's another way to approach it.